Hey everyone, this is Ergo Josh and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about how to draw like Kuvshinov Ilya. You probably know who that is if you've heard the name before. He's got well over 1 million followers on Instagram, but if you don't know him, I'll have some of his work showing on the right hand side of the screen. Now, Kuvshinov Ilya has been a huge inspiration of mine from, since before I started doing Ergo Josh. He is a Russian illustrator based in Tokyo, and he has a very iconic look to his works. A lot of people think they're very simple, but I find them very advanced, especially when it comes to the way he does his line work and his clean understanding of perspective. It's so strong in the way he draws, and you can see me working on that here as I'm trying to get the facial proportions right. I'm really trying to make sure this eye looks like it's in the correct perspective, because one of the issues when you're drawing like this, it's really easy to draw the eye looking in one direction, or not looking in one direction but at a certain angle, and then the nose will be at a different angle, and then the mouth will be at another angle. It's actually a little tricky to get them all to be in the right angle, the same one, within the head that you're drawing. So you can see me there. I'm pretty much confident with where it's at now. And yeah, this whole video is just going to be me working through this piece, and it's at 60 FPS, so I think it should be pretty helpful to watch. And this is also sped up at 500%, so 5x. And I found that as I'm watching this, it's much nicer than a lot of time lapses that are out there, because you can still see quite a bit of detail, and you can see the decisions I make and the mistakes I make, and it would be pretty easy to follow along to this. Let me know if you can or you can't. But yeah, I'm just going to go over the things that I really love about Kuvshinov Ilya's work and what I'm trying to emulate and bring into my own style. I really, some people probably would think that this is a little bit too much, but I am all about stealing people's style. I'm blatantly stealing his style here. I'm trying to rob him of it, and completely incorporate it into everything that I'm doing with my work, because when it comes to the line quality and how he draws, it's just so beautiful. One of the things, if you watch some of his videos here on YouTube, he has a YouTube channel and he occasionally posts time-lapse paintings. You can see he's extremely efficient with his lines. He draws almost as if he can see the drawing on the underside of the canvas, as if he's like tracing it. Not quite to the level and speed and efficiency of someone like Kim Jung-ji, for example, but he's pretty damn close. He gets really efficient with his lines, and you'll see like all the times where I'm undoing and erasing, he won't do that, or if he does it, he'll do it like 1% of the time that I do it. But I feel like I've still come a very long way, because like I've said, I've been following his work for a long time and really trying to incorporate that nature, that effortless look into my drawings. You can see what I'm doing now is I'm actually doing another kind of pass, and the first pass was really messy. You'll see me comparing it later on, and I feel like I had got the nice shapes that I wanted and placed everything, so I felt a lot more confident, and I was like, you know what, I don't like doing a whole different line art pass, and I'll get into that a little bit later as well, but I want to quickly do another, just start over and be a little bit cleaner, because I want to keep this sketch and I want this to be the energetic sketch that I work with, rather than keeping it super messy and then doing this dead line art later on. One of the things that I found about Kuvshinov's work is that even though he does do a lot, very often he'll just do very stark line art, he has a minimalist way about approaching it. He doesn't make everything the same line weight. He doesn't have a consistent opacity to his line, and he leaves a lot of gaps in a lot of areas, and it's really interesting to, when you study his work really closely, you can see where he makes those decisions, and you can see a lot of those decisions look like they've been influenced by anime or manga or the art style you see in those kinds of artistic products. And then you can see me here working on the fingers. Quick plug to CGMA. This is not sponsored by anyone, by the way, but I took a CGMA class about bodies, and there was a short segment on hands, because we had to cover the whole body, and I got a lot better at drawing hands. It's a quick, easy way to think about them. But yeah, definitely recommend taking some courses once you feel like you're kind of stuck with, your improvement. If you're like me and you like to try to develop a course for yourself, like a plan of action for your studies. Taking courses and seeing what other more experienced people have to say is definitely helpful. At this point here, you can see I've really exaggerated some of the anatomy for the reference here. This is just something I do for myself. I really like pushing things. You can see, like, I also study Disney a lot, specifically artists like Glenn Keane and Jin Kim, and how they push and pull different anatomy. And I find myself doing that a lot, and it's a lot more fun and entertaining. It's something that I find makes me feel fulfilled with my work rather than just copying what I see in the reference. And speaking about references, the app I have on the left side is called PureRef, and you can download that for free on Windows. I'm not sure if it's available on Mac, but you can just drag and drop images straight from your browser or your file system, and you can just keep all your references there. And if you have a touch screen like I do, you can just, scroll around and look at whatever reference you want at the top of a finger. So it's really, really efficient. And what you see me doing here is I've downloaded some references from a fantastic, I don't even know what to call him, a creator who goes by Manga Materials online. And he has a Pixiv and a Patreon now where you can look at his anatomy breakdowns, and they are fantastic because what he does is he shows you exactly the mistake that most people make and how to correct it. And he has angles of all these different poses broken down with the skeleton underneath that you can use for reference. So I highly, highly recommend you check him out. It's definitely worth supporting him. Here you can see I'm still working on the major forms, not really focused too much on the clothing. Very, very happy with how the lines are. Looking back from 2018, 2017, I'm very, very happy with the progress I've made. I wish I had done more pieces like this back then so I could see a really solid finished thing, or maybe record myself so I could get that full, confidence boost. But, the finished images, or the finished portraits at least, that I had on Instagram will be more than enough. And I'll see if I can include that here in a second on the right side of the screen as well, so that you guys can see kind of the equivalent type of work that I did back then that's similar to this. Now you can see what I'm doing is I created another layer that I'm going to use for the outfit, and I'm going to have that on top of the body. And I find that I just prefer doing that. It's really fun to draw kind of like a streamlined version of the body without any clothes and then add the clothes on top. I always like doing it because it also helps you keep things in check and not have anything weird, because if you rely too much on clothing to hide your mistakes, especially if it's not super baggy, then you'll have those mistakes there and it can be kind of tricky to fix. At this point, I'm trying to decide, how to represent the folds in the clothing with line. It's a very tricky thing to do. I'm trying to find that contrasty area. So you see that right under her arm, where I guessed her left chest would be, you see like those really deep grooves. That's like where I'd put a line, right? And then I'd have a lighter line around it to kind of show that kind of pocket area, right? So that's how I kind of think about it. And as you can see, right at her elbow, there's that really nice shape there. I don't know what to call it. It's like an oval that tapers to a point. And then I just basically draw that shape out. And then it's super helpful to have that as a landmark. And I let the edge of that shape be the darkest part inside, so I know where to put the shadow in when I come back and do some shadows on another layer. And of course, I've got to add in this classic straight jet black choker that you'll see in a lot of Kuvshinov Ilya's work here. He's known very, very much for, the classic dark-haired, short-haired Asian woman aesthetic. That really sounds like I'm reducing them to to an animal breed. But really quick, you can see the comparison of the first layer I did. So you can see what I mean by like, I really wanted to go ahead and do another layer so I can have a clean sketch. But yeah, that's really what Kuvshinov is known for. But he's done plenty of other stuff. He's done other races, and he's done cats and raccoons and stuff, and men as well. So he's well rounded. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. Right now you can see I'm cleaning up. I decided to duplicate and just merge it. And so what I'm doing is erasing the parts of the body that wouldn't be seen under the clothing at this point. And then I'm just trying to clean up some of the lines because I do plan to keep a lot of these lines in there. Just some quick things here and there to kind of clean up the sketch as I'm thinking about, what's gonna happen first when I start doing the next phase, which is probably shading or the line work. Oh yeah, I've got to finish up the hands and how the hair is going to overlap them. This was actually a lot less difficult than I thought it would be. Going into this, that was something that was a huge concern of mine, but I just tackled it, just didn't even think about it, and it ended up being pretty good. I really hope you guys are enjoying the 60 FPS video of this. It's really helpful. I find that this is not sped up too much. It's only 5 times sped up. And then you can see my brush hovering over the screen and where I'm moving. So you can really see how I'm thinking. And it looks like now I've moved on to adding some shadow to the most important areas and the darkest areas as well. So that I can give some interest to this. So, the lips, the eyebrow, a little bit under the eye in the eye socket there, differentiating the hair. And this quickly gives it a really nice look. That band of highlight there is such a popular thing you'll see that Kuvshinov has. And in a lot of anime and manga, that highlight edge that's really spiky is super appealing. At this point, I'm kind of not too sure how I want to go with this. I'm adding a little bit of darker lines here and there to make things pop. Usually I would just keep going like this when I'm going to post something on Instagram, but I wanted to, try to do my best and make this as close to something that Kuvshinov might post. You can see though, I didn't have any of his references until just now, right? So at this point it's like, okay, I need his help here because this is the hard part, the line work. This is where I really want to see how he gets this done. And here is where, this is another topic I want to talk about. So these little details really matter, and sometimes it's best to just find which artists you really enjoy when it comes to these details and just copy them, and it saves you a lot of time. So like here, I'm like, okay, you can make an eyebrow look good with just a shape and maybe 1 or 2 extra lines. And so how does he do it? And then how can I apply it? And then this is a big deal that I just found out when I did this piece. How do you draw an set of eyelashes from the side that still looks volumetric and not too complicated? And so with the reference that I have of his work right above the main reference, you can see it has this really unique shape that I was able to copy there, especially with the underside of the eyelashes. I have no idea how Kuvshi came up with this, but it's just so nice. Drawing all the eyelashes would have been worse. Drawing 2 big boring shapes would have been worse, at least the way I would have done them. But the way he did it is really cool. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to borrow that. I'm going to take it, and I'm not going to give it back. I'm going to steal it. Here you can see one of my absolute favorite parts to do is the dark little corner on the sides of the lips. That's my favorite thing to draw probably on the face. I just love adding that. It makes everything come alive because for me, my favorite thing to draw on the face is the lips, the mouth, teeth, all that. I feel like that has a lot of character to the people that I draw, even though, most people would say it's the eyes. Here I'm getting into the hands. You see I erased that little bit there right next to the pinky. It's just little things like that really come a long way. You can see me struggling to do the nail for this finger, and you see the other nails, all I did was draw the edge of them to kind of lift them off the surface of the flesh. And so I realized that that's how I need to go. And that's just something I decided to keep going with. And I'm probably going to do that in my other works. It's like finding this nice abstraction, the simplification of things is what Koshi is so good at doing. And I really wanted to incorporate that with my work. Again, you see that thick edge for the wrist there, and then how it tapers off almost completely and then it comes back in. That's really nice to look at, and that's so key to having nice appealing line work. You don't want it to be this thick line that looks like you traced it, right? You want it to have life to it. The logic for it is kind of tough. All I can say is, when something's curving, think about having it disappear like that. Think about having kind of it indicate that it's curving away from you, so it kind of disappears almost. That edge almost doesn't exist. So even though it's a line, you're suggesting that it could also just be a difference in tone, right? That's how I'm describing it. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, once we did all this stuff, I'm really happy with it. But as soon as I start getting into the clothes, something happens here and that I kind of lose control of a little bit. And I start making a lot of these lines all the same thickness and opacity, and it starts to look bad. It starts to not look very good. It's something that's tough to keep in mind. I'm doing it a little bit there when you see I'm doing the elbow on her right side. But you'll see that I'm going to erase that line for the clothing that's on her arm there is so thick, and I'll come back and make it much thinner. You see what I just did there with the coat coming over. I made it very light because it's sitting right on top of the clothing, so it doesn't need to be that dark. But the other lines that are going off into space that basically form the silhouette, those need to be dark because that is what makes the character stand out from the background. Here I'm just continuing, being careful not to include so much of the line work into the wrinkles, because that's something that's I want it to feel ethereal, something very soft, and so I feel like I don't need to have line work there, but I want to make the transition fairly smooth, so I allow it to kind of creep into the clothing near the edges. Here, I tried my best to make the thighs look as nice as he does. There's not too much going on in the reference, so I didn't want to risk adding too many curves where there weren't necessarily curves. Here, looking back, I would have liked to have keep her right leg going back behind the other one. I don't really like how it looks kind of awkward. But once I finish it up, it looks better than it does now, but I still would have liked a little bit more dynamic there. Just looking back at the video. And one thing you'll notice that I do that I find Koshi also does, and a lot of, advanced artists do, is they'll zoom out completely when they're working, especially with line art. You don't want to stay super zoomed in. I know you want to keep things smooth, right? But the more you keep zoomed out, the better you'll be able to keep control of your line work from losing control. And you'll also just make them look better. It's just those little micro mistakes sometimes give it appeal, like what I just did there. Instead of doing one line, I made a few lines curving around the folds, and I made them very light because it's just a little bit of a deviation in the fabric. It's not worth an entire bold line, right? And so I apologize about this. This is gonna just be me coloring this whole thing in. But I hope you can appreciate seeing how I work closely, because I feel like that's something I haven't really been able to show on this channel for a long time. This channel was kind of built on iPad, Apple review stuff, and also, tutorials, seeing me draw something. And so this is kind of in between. I haven't had a video in a long time where I just painted and kind of voiced over it, but hopefully you guys find this interesting. But yeah, now you'll actually get to see how I work. And this is, the process that I follow for this type of drawing that I do. It's just like a sketch that I polish up all the way. By the way, this took me 2 hours and 45 minutes of drawing time. And I would say there's probably 15 to 30 minutes of time where I would think in between sessions. This was done in 30 to 1 hour minute, 30 to 60 minute sessions. And yeah, so thinking through in between those sessions was very important. And I needed to be like, all right, what am I going to do next? Now you can see me using paintbrush. I'm using Clip Studio Paint, by the way, to fill in the hair because I want, I feel like hair, just use a brush to get a lot of the texture in as much as you can. Once you understand how to, see it in forms, you won't really have to run the risk of the brush looking like it's doing all the work. And here you can see me customizing it really quickly to get a brush that has a little bit more texture to it. Sorry about the vibrations you might be hearing. I have no idea who's texting me that much right now. But yeah, just trying to get, a dotted brush so it looks more like hair, and you can see it's not just looks more like hair, but it's a lot darker. So that's really, really appealing. And I'm able to fill in this area while keeping a lot of interesting texture in there. So it's really fun. This is one of those things that when you look at the navigator, it's so important because it might look weird now, but if you look at it on the navigator, it looks almost perfect, right? It looks like there's a pink light shining on her head. So it's one of the most important things, I find when you're working seriously, which is, one of the reasons I also like working on a desktop so much better than, iPad, for these kind of things, is because you can get a really holistic view of everything. It feels very natural, like a traditional artist working on a big canvas. They can get in close, just take a few steps back and then see the whole thing, and then get in close and then see the whole thing. And so not only do I zoom in halfway, but I also have the navigator, and I'm blessed to be able to have a 32-inch Cintiq, so I can see the whole thing at once, but also it's big enough on the screen where I can, especially since it's a 4K screen, I can see enough detail to just draw on it, In my opinion, I think 8K is the last frontier for digital art. I feel like on an 8K screen, you would not see the difference between a sheet of paper unless you got uncomfortably close to the, paper or screen, because that would show enough detail for you to just sit there and draw and use your head to move to see closer. At this point, what I did was duplicate it so it had a lot of richness. I find that in the digital art style that I do, duplicating things can help a lot because I tend to be a little bit too light. And then you can see me here, I'm adding in the strands on the finger and then the strands, erasing some away, zooming out and just comparing the look and erasing some of those strands away so that it looks more like the reference there. And you can see me now, I'm adding some shadows back to kind of compare and see how this should look. I'm really, really happy with this at this point, especially if you look at the navigator. It has a really, really cool vibe, but I still wanted to add some shading to it to see how that would work. And I end up not liking it too much, but you'll see I find a way to work through it. At this point here, I'm kind of realizing that, okay, I don't have enough time to take as much effort into the clothing as I normally would. Now, if I wanted to spend 6 hours on this, what I would do is I would do the shading and I would create flats for the pants, the coat that she has on, whatever that is. I need to learn about, women's clothing and the undershirt that she has on, or the tank top, I don't know. And then a flat for maybe the hair. Oh, no, and the skin, of course. And then I would tweak the shading colors to match those and have it really, really nice. And then look at some of Kuvshin's work for inspiration for how to do some really minimalistic kind of airbrushing to give it a little bit more form. And I just did that scribble with the pink there because I wanted to test, what would it look like if I made her pants pink, so that this feels a little bit more, me, right? And I decided it worked. I liked how it looked. I liked the vibe, and I was like, all right, let's do it. And I just fill it in and Clip Studio, fill it in, increase the color margin, tap twice, and it's filled in perfectly. Now you can see right there, I showed the full opacity of everything and it looked really bad, and I removed the sketch, and now it's like, it's kind of cool, but it's like, I don't want to keep going. That's like a lot of work. So I'm like, how can I keep my sketch but not have to ink this perfectly? So I was like, okay, I'm going to cut away the shading for the shirt. I'm not really feeling that too much right now. And then that's kind of where I decide, okay, I forgot about the legs. I really need to add shading for the legs because, we got to have that roundness of those thighs there to really make this appealing. And then I decide, why not just darken everything up a little bit more, get the roundness for the arms, the hands in there. I'm so happy I don't have to draw that hand in. I shouldn't have made it such a bold curve like that. It's a little bit of an anatomy mistake right there. You can see in the reference, you see where the palm, the finger separates from the palm. I should have had that in there, but I don't. So yeah, I guess that's just what happens when every hour after you finish an artwork, you're going to start seeing more and more and more and more that you don't like. At this point, I remember that I forgot the glasses. I hate drawing glasses. I think the issue is I feel too, I don't know, like stubborn to break out the ellipse tool and all that. But at the same time, I hate taking the time to draw the oval on a different layer and then perfectly and then bring it back. So it's like, you'll see I find a way to figure that out. But man, yeah, I don't know. I just need to, if I can do all this and be patient, then why can't I just draw glasses right? And don't worry, I do remember to draw the other frame in there. That's an easy beginner mistake, I guess. Here what I'm doing is I'm just trying to see how I like this thing. And oh yeah, no, I drew the glasses on the wrong layer. So I was trying to fix that. You saw me kind of working through that just then. And I think here it was probably a period where I was changing the song or something. I could have gone all in this and made the glasses like have form like the frames did, but nah, you know, I felt like it wasn't as necessary for this piece, especially when you look at the zoomed out thing. You know, the glasses are already doing their job. So I decided to just, you know, leave them and have some varied line weight to the frame so that, or the rim of the glasses, so that it really has this nice organic feeling, just like the rest of the sketch does. Now I'm going through and I'm seeing all those little quips and little marks in the sketch layer. And so I'm like, all right, thinking about gonna have to erase and clean those up at some point and how best to do that. And I'm thinking, why not erase some of them completely as well, because they're a little bit redundant. Here I was a little bit conflicted. I think I was zooming in and out trying to see, you know, I really love how it looks now. And then I was like, wait, what if I just take the opacity down, right? And I was like, wow, I really like how that looks. It looks a lot better, a lot less intense, because the shading for the skin was just so overbearing. And I decided to just quickly go back in and add some line work that I forgot about there. Going back to talk about Kuvshinov a little bit, one thing that I find about him, and I feel like is repeating in a lot of artists, is if you look back at his work from 10 years ago, it looks almost the same. And my theory on that is that artists like him they've done a lot of work and they find their aesthetic really quickly, and they decide to focus on quality really early on, and then eventually it just becomes speed, and the quality that they have kind of improves. It improves very, very little as time goes on. And I think that's a very efficient way of going about, you know, your art journey at a certain level, because you have a lot of really high quality work. People get to know you more. It's easier to build an audience when you have a lot of work for people to consume. And, you know, you build a reputation for yourself. And I think I'm at that place where I want to try to do that now, because it's also a lot easier to improve once you have a handle of the fundamentals, you understand them all, then improving them on a project by project basis, where you do something you want to do and then improve every aspect within that piece, and then you move on to the next one instead of doing a lot of studies for one topic, can be really helpful and keep you really proud of yourself. And, you know, it has the ability of lifting up your emotions too. When you have a lot of finished artwork you can look at in the past and share with people, and they can see your improvement easier than if it was just studies. And then you feel like you're not wasting all your time or just walking backwards, right? At this point, I'm still working through some of the little details there. Some of the lines kind of intersect a little bit too much, and so I would go in to erase that. I added in the fingernails there a little bit to give it some more pop there, add some pink into different areas. I'm really, really loving how it looks in the navigator right now as well. But I decided to do, you know, take some more liberties here and try to add some highlights to the pants. Like you know, it's there in the reference, but it just didn't look good at all. I don't know if it was because of the pink or because I didn't try hard enough to make it look like the reference. I was going way too opaque. But you'll see I have another solution to that at some point. And there we have it. That was my big decision after a break I just took, where I was like, I miss how the hair looked when it was pink. And as soon as I switched it back now, I feel like this piece just transformed. I don't know about you guys, but this piece just has another level to it now, just by making the hair pink and having that softer edge at the top, contrasting with the very intense shapes at the bottom. And it's those things like that that really take your work to the next level. It's like you're not just good at perspective, you're not just good at your technique and all that, but like having dynamic colors and dynamic balances to everything. Colors, intensity, line, everything. It's really something that can take your work further once you're able to not focus too much on like, dang, her face is still messed up or the fingers are still bad. You know, you need to get through that. Everybody has to get through that. But once you get past that, you can start to play with bigger themes in your work and really push the envelope. Now I'm adding those oh so lovely streaked highlights in the hair. And I added some shadows to it. I don't even remember doing that. I probably glossed over it, but I added some deeper pinks in there, which really made it have this really nice, lush, like juicy look to it. Kind of feels cyberpunk, and you'll see a lot of Kuvshinov stuff looks like that. And it's just so appealing, and I really love that I added that. And here you can see me experimenting with highlights on the pants, and I come up with this soft one for the sides and then add some harder highlights to some of the edges there that really make it pop. Splitting that, you know, seam in there, adding some of the creases for where it stops, and it starts to just really look nice. At this point I decided, okay, I'm going to take that same color for the hair and see if we can't revisit some of the shadows for the jacket. And I decided, wow, it actually looks good when, when the hair is pink. And so I decided I'm going to keep it in there. Now, I don't have time to do all the rest of the rendering for the jacket, but I'm like, you know what? It's cool. It's all right. I'm going to push through this. And, I think it doesn't have this unfinished look like it did a few minutes ago. It's something that's still really appealing. I was getting distracted there, seeing the music, me changing the music in the video. I thought it was happening now as I'm doing this recording. I'm like, oh no, what's going on? Just working way more and more at those folds. It really starts to look really nice and fluffy and comfortable. And I'm really enjoying that aesthetic here. And I think I might be finishing up pretty soon. Let's see. Yeah, just about 30 seconds more. And so I decide to add in just a little bit more finishing touches, add some darker lines here and there. Nothing really too notable. I'm really proud of the dark pink lines I did for the hair there. Just zooming in and out, trying to see how it looks, comparing it, getting the right feel and right vibe for it. And here I'm trying out the classic, duplicate the line work thing, but I decided I had to make it extremely subtle for me to be satisfied with it because it ended up blurring things way too much. And I'm setting this up here for you guys to be able to see it properly. And yeah, I hope you are enjoying this comparison because I'm very happy with this and how it turned out. The only thing, again, I'd say is the fact that the legs, I wish I angled them a little bit better. And I feel like the outline for her back is a little wonky looking. Yeah, so I don't know. I would revisit that. But other than that, I'm super happy with this. And as a quick bonus, I want to show you the process for how I did this. So we have the final version that you saw at the end of the recording. Then you have this version, which is just edited in Photoshop. Main thing I did here was decrease the clarity. That is a pro tip for me. That will get your drawings having this really fluffy, bright, airy look. And then the third version now you're seeing is the version where I just added some filters and messed with the colors a little bit to really get it to this nice final version that you're most likely seeing in the thumbnail. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me feedback on this. Did you enjoy it? Was it helpful? How was the speed? Did you enjoy the voiceover? Should I have just shut up and done music? You know, should I have not done music to this voiceover? I don't know if I'll add that yet, but yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next Twitch live stream, which I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. or in the next video. Have a great day, keep drawing, and stay positive. Peace.